Joy, go for joy. Go for joy.
We should be aware on a day like this that voting rights are being systematically taken away from African Americans and other people too in this country. You got to be very, very careful. You can celebrate the day, which we do, but there are very important issues at stake here this year. So it's a good day to reflect on that, I think.
So welcome to GAMcast for June 20th, 2022, otherwise known as Juneteenth. We're live streaming and we're going to drop it into a podcast as soon as we finish. It is a beautiful sunny day in Atlanta and it is hot. Sorry to start you off with Joy Behar. That was Joy Behar of The View, claiming that African Americans are systematically being taken away their right to vote. Now, this is something that you are going to hear a lot of over the weekend and up until today. And again, as per usual, we will interpret the news of the day through the Constitution, the law, and history, and debunk most of everything that's out there. Unfortunately, it's all lies. But the weekend was all Juneteenth and all January 6th. Now, folks, nobody's paying attention to January 6th but the Democrats, right, and the January 6th committee and the media. That's it. Nobody else cares, but they care. So we're going to debunk two new theories they're throwing out there. We're going to talk about Joy Behar. We're going to tell you a couple of trends that are going on. We'll do a bunch of other things to get you up with the news of the day. We're going to try to do it in under 40 minutes. I think I can beat the clock today. As we know, we now have a clock on our software that we had been lacking. So anyway, Joy Behar was there. It took me the first search I did, and because we're broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia, I just picked Georgia. I could have picked anywhere, but it's the same trend all across the country. That is an outright lie. Now, when we're talking about Joy Behar, it may not be a lie because she may be that imbecilic to not know that that's not true, but this is the Pew Research Center. On the Great American Mail, we go to left-wing sites. We're not going to go to Newsmax. We're not going to go to Fox. We're not going to go to the Federalist. We're not going to go to Daily Wire. We don't have any problem with any of those so conservative or Republican or right-wing institutions at all. We love them. But we go to the left wing. This is Pew. Okay, black voters in Georgia had the largest increase in registration since 2016. And you can see the numbers right here. If you're watching on the live stream, you can see it. Go right here. Black, Latino, Asians have been key to Georgia's registered vote growth since 2016. And we know, folks, again, this easily debunkable. In the 2020 election, right, in the runoff, you had Trump lose, right? You had Ossoff and Warnock both win. Now, she thinks blacks are systematically their votes are being stolen. And how in the world is that happening? Here you see here that since 2016, the percentage increase of African Americans in Georgia, 25%. Percentage increase of Latina, 18%. White, 18%. Unknown, 14%. Asian, 12%. Other, 11%. So everybody has increased. Every group. But African Americans have increased the most. So, again, folks, it's just a lie. They're using Juneteenth, and I should have seen this. I mean, when they talked about making Juneteenth a holiday, I was like, well, all right. I mean, I don't really know we need to add more holidays. We've got plenty, right? And we already have a holiday that's so-called focusing on the black community, which would be Dr. King Day, which I love Dr. King. And I kind of like Juneteenth, too, because, Dr. King and Juneteenth share something in that you get a Monday off, which is great. I mean, it's a guaranteed three-day weekend. Not every holiday gives you that, folks. This is an important thing to do. So anyway, when they weren't talking about black issues and they weren't talking about January 6th, they were talking about the Biden fall. And if those of you who are watching the live stream, you can see it. We've got it pulled up. We're going to tell you what's going on with the Biden fall. Our take's going to be, as per usual, a little bit different than most everybody else's. But if you're watching on the live stream, here it is.
Dr. Biden, how is anniversary?
Off. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. He gets up pretty good, though, for a man his age. All right, so here's what you need to know about this. A, it's not funny. The right wing, this video went viral, was seen just multiple millions of times, and people sort of made fun of Biden. I think that's inappropriate. Anybody can fall. I mean, I used to ride a bike quite a bit, and I fell a couple times. I mean, I'm not 79 like Biden. I mean, this was when I was in my mid to late 40s. I hadn't ridden as much since COVID. But anybody, it could happen to anybody. And look, he's an old person, and you got to understand, my mother's fallen a couple times, and now her hip is not really right. He's at an age where a fall could really hurt him substantially. So I just don't think it's appropriate, nor is it really, A, it's not funny, and B, it could happen to anybody. It doesn't really prove anything. What does prove something is his inability to pronounce things or hold a cogent thought, right? Or it seems completely lost at times. That means something. The bike fall, it doesn't mean much. And to be fair to Biden, which, you know, the Great American Male will believe in being fair, he sprung up pretty quickly. I mean, the other thing you got to understand is this was not just a bike like a lot of people have. So he was riding a mountain bike. I have a mountain bike that has the same pedal system. I'll tell you about in a moment. I have a speed bike that has the same pedal system. And what happens is you click on and it locks you to the pedal. It's not just a pedal that you put your feet on and you can quickly just move your feet left and right and get off them. You have to unclick the pedal and then put your foot down. And it looks like he tried to unclick it, and sometimes they're not that easy to unclick, and then he fell. So that's another point in his favor. Now, here's what it does show. I already told you, here's a problem, okay? The problem is it clearly was a photo op. They had media there. They had all this planned. Maybe if you've got somebody that's in early stages of something, we don't know what, and he's 79 years old and he's out there for the, you know, for on the weekend, maybe not add the pressure of a photo op for just maybe. I mean, remember when Reagan ran for president? I mean, again, we've been following politics since the early 70s, right? I mean, decades upon decades, decades. He was 69 and people said he was too old to be president. I mean, Biden is 79 years old. He'll be 80 in November, folks. 80 in November. And keep that in mind. So, you know, the left just has different standards, and that is the story. So I didn't like the fact that the right wing or Republicans or whatever you want to call them were sort of, you know, making a little bit of fun of Biden there. I didn't think that was appropriate. But what we saw from the left was picking on the right for doing it. And we all know that just a couple of years ago, anytime Trump did anything, if he stumbled, if he misstated, it was headline news. So again, we had the typical nonsense reaction from the left to these types of things. But interesting about Biden as it relates to the fall and these other issues is it just goes to show people that this guy just can't perform the basic functions of being the president. I mean, the president is not just making decisions, and his decisions are awful. But unfortunately, it's increasingly become a job where you have to go out there and do ceremonial things. And again, I regret that he fell, and I hope he's okay. But he should not be doing these things. It's not great for him. So we've already covered Juneteenth. We've already covered the bike ride. So really, the only real news that's out there, if you don't know where to look, is the January 6th Commission. So as you know, I don't have cable news. I don't have cable in my house. I can't watch Fox. I can't watch MSNBC. I can't watch CNN. The only time I can is when I go to the gym. And when I go to the gym, I typically do about 30 minutes of weightlifting, and then I do, depending on the day, if it's a golf day, I do 20 minutes of cardio minimum. If not, I do 30 plus. And so I have to watch it because at my gym they have 2 MSNBCs, they have 2 CNNs, and they have 1 Fox over in the corner. I guess they can't help themselves to get rid of Fox. But anyway, all they talked about all weekend was Juneteenth, and that was like 10%. 90% is January 6th. And the committee doesn't come until tomorrow. And as you know, we're live streaming that. So if you're listening to us on the live stream at YouTube, you want to subscribe because we will live stream that tomorrow when it starts in its entirety. And if you want to go to any of the past hearings, you can get those on our YouTube page as well. So what are they talking about as it relates to the January 6th committee and January 6th generally? Well, there's 2 new things that they're pushing. But before we get to those, I want to get to 2 more items of news that we can get out there pretty quickly, and then we're going to get back to Juneteenth and January 6th, and then we're going to finish the show. And it looks like we will finish pretty early today. We're making a lot of really good progress, which is awesome. So here's from the New York Post. If you're watching on the live stream, you can see it. If you're not, you're listening. I'll read it to you. Number of Americans who believe in God drops to historic low. Poll. The percentage of Americans who say they believe in God has dipped to the lowest number in the past 80 years, according to a new Gallup poll published Friday. The Values and Belief poll, conducted from May the 2nd to the 22nd of this year, showed 81% of people answered that they believe in God. That is down 6 points from 87% of respondents who said they believed in God in the 2017 poll. This is the lowest percentage in Gallup's trend since the public opinion polling company first asked the question in 1944. This year's poll found 17% of Americans said they do not believe in God. So if you put that together, it only gets you to 98. I guess there's 2% that are sort of agnostic. But folks, this is a continuing trend, and it is an emblematic of a lot of things that are going on in our country, in our culture. It is not good. Okay, I'm not a particularly religious person, so I really don't have a dog in the fight. While I don't go to church, while I don't do a lot of religious things, I do see the good that religion does bring to the country and bring to the culture. So when I see stuff like this where people say that not even they don't go to church, they don't even believe in God, this is not good. And it coincides with another similar study out there. This is from the census.gov, the U.S. government. Percentage and number of children living with two parents has dropped since 1968. The number of children living with two parents has dropped since 1968, while the percentage living with their mother has only doubled, right? And so it's interesting. In 1968, 85% of children under 18 lived with two parents, regardless of marital status. By 2020, 70% did, according to a Census Bureau's population survey. Now, folks, what these two trends tell you a bunch of things. One is it tells you which way we're going in terms of a country and a culture. Because I don't think anyone would, well, actually, a lot of people on the left would disagree, but I don't think anybody rational would disagree that, hey, religion, having some kind of faith, belief in some sort of higher power is a good thing in general, right? I mean, it helps with morality, a bunch of other things. And also, the nuclear family is an ideal, and that's what we should be trying to espouse to. Now, you probably are not going to hear these stories unless you listen to this podcast, right, or this live stream. And you're probably not going to see it anywhere else. I only saw it just because I read just about everything, and those things caught my eye. And it is an increasing reminder that almost every trend right now in the United States of America is bad, right? I mean, you see the trend and it's going in the wrong direction, and the government's not doing anything to correct it. I mean, this should scare the living daylights out of us. And when I get to this January 6th stuff, you'll see that the trend there is bad too. But folks, you cannot continue to sustain yourself as a nation, as a first-class nation, if every trend you've got out there is going the wrong way. So I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I like a lot of people. In fact, I think I had this survey in there. I don't know if I covered it, but a lot of people gained weight during COVID. I gained, I think, about 20 pounds or so. And so now I've got the trend going back. I'm down 6 pounds, I think. Yeah, 6 pounds from the top of my trend. And so I'm going in the right direction. So I feel like, as the week come forward, I'll continue to lose weight. That's good, right? So I've made the changes I need to make, namely increasing the weightlifting and increasing the cardiovascular, right? A little bit of diet changes, but not a lot. But at least I'm going in the right direction. If I were continuing to gain weight, you think I would continue to double down on the same stuff? But that's exactly what America's doing. Nobody cares. Belief in God going down, nuclear family, two-parent households going down, and you don't see anything the government doing to try and fix that. In fact, the government's more concerned about Ukraine and other things. But look, I don't do a lot of social stuff on the show, as you know, those if you've been listening from the very beginning. So I just want to cover that. So let's get to January 6th. Now, January 6th is all the media wanted to talk about over the weekend. They are pushing it 24/7, 365, and it is clear at this point they want Trump to be indicted. Now, there was a poll that came out. It was an ABC poll, so take that with a grain of salt, that said that 61% of the people want to see Trump get charged. Now, of course, as per usual, I mean, our discourse in this country is less than Twitter, and Twitter only gives you 144 characters. And I think we do worse than that in political discourse. The poll doesn't say convicted of what, charged of what, what's the evidence, none of this, right? And then they repeat the poll as if the poll is not biased, as if the people who, sat there, listened to a bunch of facts on it. This is not the way crime works in this country. But increasingly it is. Increasingly we're getting back to the USSR, right? When the Interior Ministry, I forget his name, Bavaria or something like that, once said, you show me the man, I'll name you the crime, or some such words to that effect. And what he meant was, I can charge anybody with anything, and I can do a show trial. And that's exactly what you're seeing now. You've seen it with Trump 3 times. The 2 impeachments were show trials. January 6th is a show trial, right? And conducted in secrecy. They don't show you the evidence at any point. There's no opposition of any kind allowed, right? And then the result for them is preordained. Now, the only difference is in America, we've got a constitution that we haven't quite shredded, so they weren't able to convict Trump. They won't be able to convict him in this instance. But it's looking increasingly like they likely will indict Trump somewhere. And I think that's what this is going on. They're going to just drumbeat it. And the more people hear it, the more they'll believe it. And the poll will go from 61 to 70%. And at one point, when they get enough polling behind them, I think Biden's DOJ will go ahead and pull the trigger. I mean, what's the downside? So you try it. It either gets thrown out, which it should be on a motion to dismiss. But if you get a judge, and even a Republican judge has already said, as to the January 6th committee, he wouldn't toss them out. So if he wouldn't toss them out, he's probably not going to toss out an indictment of Trump. And even if the jury says not guilty, you're like, whatever. Juries do crazy stuff all the time. So there's no downside to him being indicted. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the things that they did. So over the weekend, Lawrence Tribe is like a god to these people. Okay, there's Obama. He's like the number one god that they pray to. I mean, they worship him, right? They don't believe in the real God, but they make their own gods of people. So, but Tribe, he's maybe not the god or a king. He's kind of like a duke or a prince, something like that. He's in the royalty, and he's really, really high up there. I mean, you wouldn't want to mess with him, but he's not quite up there with Obama. But he's the one, he teaches at Harvard Law. He's the one that, he's got a couple of constitutional textbooks that you learn from, and he doesn't believe in the Constitution at all. Everything he says is complete leftist nonsense. He would tear the Constitution into shreds if he could. But anyway, so he is pushing Luttig out there. And again, if you haven't heard from Luttig, we're going to play a little bit of Luttig, because he was the guy who testified last Thursday at the January 6th third hearing. If you want to, by the way, go to our YouTube channel, and we've got the whole thing. We covered the whole thing and analyzed the whole thing. It's about 3.5 hours, 2.5 hours of which is theirs, and then about an hour is our commentary. But Luttig was terrible. Here's what he sounded like at the committee, in case you're interested. I thought I had it. Here we go. Here's Luttig at the committee. And again, he's a former Fourth Circuit judge. I think he served in the Reagan administration in some legal capacity, and then he was appointed to the bench either by Reagan or may have been Herbert Walker. It doesn't matter. He served a lot of years on the bench. He's a Republican. He's not a conservative at all. I don't even believe he's a Reagan conservative. But anyway, take a listen to his testimony before January 6th committee last Thursday. Sounded something like this.
The former president, his allies and supporters pledge that in the presidential election of 2024, if the former president or his anointed successor as the Republican Party presidential candidate were to lose that election, that they would attempt to overturn that 2024 election in the same way that they attempted to overturn the 2020 election.
All right, that's enough of him. So I mocked him mercifully during my live cast. He's not a Republican, and I've got proof of that, thanks to Larry Tribe, by the way. And I say this all the time. They will contradict themselves within a page, within a paragraph, within a sentence. Okay? I mean, literally, Larry Tribe, within a couple of days, literally sends the video. I'm going to play to you in a minute that proves this guy is an anti-Trumper. I suspected he was, right? And in fact, I found an article during the live stream pretty quickly that sort of indicated it, but I've got proof now. I mean, his own language, not just anyway. So he sounded awful. I mean, folks, that kind of witness testimony, and I thought that's the way he spoke all the time. Again, Larry Tribe sent the video. I'm going to play for you in a moment. The guy doesn't talk like that normally. This is an effect. It's not a very good effect. Now, everybody on the left has been just highlighting it, saying how great it is. You heard it. It's awful. Nobody wants to hear you talk like, because you're trying to make yourself sound smarter or whatever. It's just irritating. Get to the point. Tell me what you got, okay? And he ain't got much. I also mocked him mercifully at this point for how in the world are they going to do what they tried to do in 2020 and 2024 when Kamala is going to be the presiding officer. She's going to be the VP. She's not going to send them back to the states. She's not going to sit there and do anything other than follow what's going to help Democrats. Well, he's revealed what his quote-unquote plan is again, and it's nothing. We're going to go through it. So you've heard from Luttig. That's what he sounded like. This is Larry Tribe. This is Luttig on NPR on June 16th. Before he testified on June 16th, he appeared on NPR, the Frontline interview right here. So we're going to listen to that. Here's what he sounded like when he was interviewed by NPR earlier this year. Take a listen.
I mostly want to talk to you about 2020 and what you saw, what concerned you in your role. But first, was there anything that was concerning to you about American democracy before 2020, before we get to the campaign, before we get to the election?
Yes, although I didn't frame it in that way at all. I had been concerned about our democracy, American democracy, beginning during the primaries in 2016.
Okay, so there you have it. All right. So this, I'm sorry, I didn't say this earlier, but this is an interview from May 25th, 2022. So they all know they've had to go out, and what the committee's done the last couple of hearings is they've gone and gotten Republicans. Because to them, you see, and again, some people go like, anybody can find a Rhino, anybody can find a Kinzinger or a Cheney, or anybody, right? Again, you have to remember how they think, folks. Nietzsche said it best. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. So Democrats, they're all a hive mind. If you find somebody that says something, of course, they get rid of them immediately. But to them, that's like an exceptional thing. To us, it's like, yeah, we got a big tent. We got some people that don't like Trump. We got some people that think you should just lose, and even if there's quote-unquote irregularities or outright fraud, you should just take it and move on if you're a Republican. I mean, there are people that believe that. So when somebody comes forward like Luttig, we're like, yeah, whatever. There are all kinds of people. But to them, it's like, oh, my God, one of their own people actually doesn't support him. But here you have proof of two things. One, he doesn't talk that way the way he's talking in front of the hearing, right? And I understand, to be fair, we believe in being fair. He's talking one-on-one here with a guy at NPR. It's a little different when the whole nation's watching and you're in front of a committee. I get it. But this guy's a federal judge. You can see his cadence fine. He's effectuating that, which, folks, I tell you right now, if any lawyers out there listening and you want to go try a case, tell your witnesses not to try that. People see right through it. It's not hard. The other thing is, there you go. Boom. He goes all the way. See, well, it started in 2016. I wonder what happened in 2016. Well, he continues.
Because I saw what everyone else saw, which was the at that point the bombast and the language, if you will, of politics that represented to me an assault on American democracy.
Now, I'm going to let him continue, folks, but I want to interrupt here because it's a very important point. Now, he talks about the bombast, and he talks about that. To be fair to him, because I want to represent him fairly, he's in the George Will crowd. I used to worship George Will. I used to read every column the guy ever wrote. He was just a brilliant guy. He was a great strategician. He and I politically agree right up until Trump. Now, it's just amazing to me to see these people come out of the woodwork. He talks about the bombasts. Was he around for George W. Bush? I mean, they went after that guy, every day, 24/7, 365. As bad as they were against Bush, they flipped and were pro-Obama by the same degree, right? But the bombast is for all Republicans now. It started with W, now it's everybody. So, but to be fair, what I think his point would be if you could get him alone and he wasn't on one of these tours where he's going to make some money by turning on his own team. I mean, he's a Judas. He is, clearly. He may believe some of it, though. And I'll tell you what he believes, just like George will. People like that, and I believe me, I was sympathetic to it until you get to the point when it's like, look, at this point we're surrounded, right, and they're going to kill us. So we either got to fight out of here or we're done. I wish we weren't at this point, but we are, okay? And so what he's basically saying is this. Yeah, they do it, but we can't act like them. And I say this all the time, and they're right in a way. The reason they're right is that anything they do that disrupts an order in a system, it benefits them because they don't have order in their system. Our system has to have the rule of law. People actually have to follow it. You have to look at it and go, yeah, I really hate Trump. Yeah, I can't stand him. Yeah, I wish he hadn't had that call with Rathbusberger, but it's not a crime. It's a political disagreement, and we don't do that here, right? I understand that. And so that could be what he's talking about here, is that you shouldn't do what they do because we're the orderly, rule of law, calm. See, that's probably his point, I'm guessing. I don't know. We'll see. Or he could just be an anti-Trumper, but he's going to get to it. So what is his problem? What's his bombast? It's a little bit nebulous, but let's get to that, and we'll move on to a couple more things from Judge Luttig.
Which parts of what you were hearing were the things that really stood out to you?
Well, I'm talking now about the Republican primary. It started off with 14 or 15, candidates. And you can recall those primary debates, and then the campaigning during the primary itself, and the politicians, who I believe are at the root of all evil, they were beginning to talk the language of assault and attack on America herself and the institutions of American democracy, which I consider to be the Congress of the United States, the executive office of the presidency, and the federal judiciary. And
so, folks, basically, he's just giving away the ghost at that point. So what he's saying is, hey, you're not allowed to challenge the government itself. Okay, fine. I mean, now, folks, I want you to understand, it was interviewed, that's May 25th of 2022. Okay, it's the 20th plus, 8, 9, or is it, 9, because it's 29 days ago, he's saying that. What planet does he live on, literally? I mean, does he trust the governments of the United States at this point? Biden? He's saying that during Biden, where they literally have political prisoners in January 6th. They're literally doing a show trial that he participated in. He believes in the rule of law in America, and he's participating in a show trial where they are conducting investigations they do not have the authority to conduct. They are doing it in secrecy, which is bad enough. Okay, do the secrecy for a year. Then when you're done, show everybody the evidence. No, they're not doing that. They're only picking little bits of the evidence. They're manipulating the evidence. And this man has the gall to come before us and say that he's concerned about American. I mean, folks, again, we have now proven that he's an anti-Trumper and he's anti-American. What he is he's an elite. And you don't challenge the elite. They challenge themselves. Maybe he goes and says, hey, Biden, I don't know about this secrecy thing. Of course, since he's participating in it, maybe not. But anyway, so finally, my friend, I got that from Lawrence Tribe. But if you're watching the live stream, this is his @TribeLaw. Boom, there he is. How many followers does he have? Yeah, 1.5. I'm surprised it's only 1.3 million. I would have thought he had about 3. But anyway, must read CNN op-ed by Judge Luttig. So you just heard Judge Luttig, the Republican blueprint to steal the 2024 election. So I was like, I got to see this. Bam, let's pull it up. I read it before I started the show today. Now, if you're watching the live stream, you can see it too. Must read CNN, the blueprint. All right, this is Judge Luttig. The objective is not somehow to rescind the 2020 election, as they would have us believe. That's constitutionally impossible. But you're already telling me they're trying to do things that are constitutionally impossible. But again, whatever, let's read on. Trump's and the Republicans' far more ambitious objective is to successfully execute successfully in 2024 the very same plan they failed in executing in 2020, and to overturn the 2024 election if Trump or his anointed successor loses again in the next quadrennial contest. The last presidential election was a dry run for the next. Now, again, riddle me this, Batman. How do we do it if we ain't got the presiding officer, which is going to be Kamala this time? We couldn't even do it when we had Pence. Somehow we're going to do it when we have Kamala. Don't understand that. From long before Election Day 2020, Trump and his Republicans planned to overturn the presidential election by exploiting the electors and elections clause of the Constitution, the Electoral College, the Electoral Count Act of 77, 12th Amendment, if Trump lost the popular and Electoral College vote. The cornerstone of the plans was to have the Supreme Court embrace the little-known independent state legislatures doctrine, which in turn would pave the way for exploitation of the Electoral College process and the Electoral Count Act, and finally for Vice President Mike Pence to reject enough swing state electoral votes to overturn the election using Pence's ceremonial power under the 12th Amendment and award the presidency to Trump. Okay, that is succinctly what they were trying to do with 2020. But you have to understand, and again, he doesn't give any credence to this, but a lot of state legislatures, not just Trump, a lot of people, including Trump, but in addition to Trump, he couldn't have executed the plan if he didn't have alternate electors sent there by people who also thought the election was problematic for whatever reason. Okay, so Trump can't do it on his own. He just washes that away. It's Trump's plan. They all did it. Nobody has a problem with the election. Okay, Trump and his allies and supporters in Congress and the states began readying their failed 2020 plan to overturn the 2024 election later that very same day. And they have been unabashedly readying that plan ever since, in plain view to the American public. Today, they are already a long way toward recapturing the White House in 2024, whether Trump or another candidate wins the election or not. Now, folks, I think that's slander. It's too ambiguous to be slander, But that strikes me as very, very close to slander. I don't know where he's coming up with that. They're not doing it in plain sight at all. What's happening, again, is what the left always does, is they do something, and then you react to it, and then they accuse you of doing that which they have done. All I'm seeing is people going, no, we got to fix the way people vote in this country. We got to make sure there's not any more fraud, and we'd like to look and see if anything happened last time, right? But anyway, Trump and Republicans are preparing to return to the Supreme Court, where this time they will likely win the independent state legislature doctrine now that Amy Coney Barrett is on the court and ready to vote. Barrett has not addressed the issue, but this turns on an originalist interpretation of the Constitution, and Barrett is firmly aligned on that method of constitutional interpretation with Thomas Alito and Gorsuch, all three of whom have written that they believe the doctrine is correct. Now, again, even if he's right, that only gives you 4. 4 is not the 5 that you need. So where are the others going to get? And again, folks, what in the world is he talking about? I mean, is this just insanity? I mean, okay, yeah, you know what? You're right, Judge Luttig. I mean, courts all across the fluted plain have been just getting in line to try to help Trump. He filed 62 cases. I could pull it up here. I don't want to, but he filed 62 cases. He won one, which was a ceremonial victory. Didn't mean anything. He lost all the others, and about 20% or 25% of the judges that ruled against him were Republicans. But you're expecting us to believe, and don't believe me. Don't the Republican Supreme Court dominated, has 6 Republicans on it, 3 Democrats. Did it take the Pennsylvania case? No, it did not. Only Justice Thomas wanted to take that case, not Barrett, who was on the court, not Alito, not Gorsuch. They wouldn't take it. Did he win the executive when he argued executive privilege? No. Again, he lost that too. So I don't know what Luttig is talking about. So what you see here, I'm not going to read any more of this because I do need to make sure we finish the show on time. But this is his blueprint. This is a must-read. There's about 3 paragraphs you're missing. And again, all he's talking about is this independent state legislature. Let me tell you what that is real quickly, as you need to know. Here's the problem that they've got and what Pence and those guys were trying to do. At the end of the day, what appears to have happened in 2020, and folks, if you want to learn more about this stuff, go to greatamericanmail.substack.com or go to our YouTube page. We're increasingly doing videos on these things. I've done a lot of work on this, and that what the plan was, the problem that the Democrats had is that, A, there have been a lot of irregularities in the election. Anybody who was alive at the time and voted at the time knows that. Universal mail-in balloting they didn't do through the legislature, that kind of thing. And so what happened is, in some cases, most cases, you had Democrat executives certifying results that admittedly did go for Biden. And then you had Republican legislatures sending alternative slates saying, no, we think that they should go for Trump because we think Trump really won. And what people like Luttig do is, A, they disregard any irregularities. B, they assume that Trump knew he didn't win, which that's not the case. We're going to get to that in a moment, right? Trump actually thought he won. But there is a conflict. And if you look at our last YouTube YouTube video that we put up yesterday, it walks you through the Electoral College actually, or the Electoral Count Act of 1877 actually has a provision in it when you have a legislature and the executive differing. Right? There's a procedure to follow it. And he doesn't go into any of that. But the independent state legislature doctrine basically just says the legislature controls how the states conduct elections, not the executives. But if you look at the Electoral Count Act, it seems to say if there's a dispute between the two, the executive controls. So there's some tension there about who really selects and who really resolves what goes on. But Luttig, supposedly a lawyer, right? Supposedly, he was a Fourth Circuit Justice Court of Appeals judge. He should have people that can write better than this. This is something that literally I would give a C- to a law student. So anyway, let's get to the last story of the day, and that is they are looking more and more like they're going to try and get Trump for the phone call that he had with Raffensperger. You will know that after the election, Trump felt like he'd been cheated, and he called Brett Raffensperger. He's going to testify tomorrow. We will be live streaming the whole thing, and we'll hear from him. And here's a little bit of the call. This is what they're pointing everybody to say that Trump, again, tried to rig it. This is how weak it is. But here's what somebody who believes that Trump committed a crime, here's what they're going to play for you. Take a listen.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state, and flipping the state is a great testament to our country, because, you know, there's just, it's a testament that they can admit to a mistake, or whatever you want to call it, if it was a mistake. I don't know. If we could just go over some of the numbers, I think it's pretty clear that we won. We won very.
So that's his call. They play some snippets in there where he's pressuring Roethlisberger, but they don't play the beginning of the call. So let's play the beginning of the call and listen to Trump talking to Brad Roethlisberger. And again, this is another call where you've got Mark Meadows, Trump's counsel, you got Roethlisberger, and I think 2 Georgia officials. So it's not as though he's doing it in secrecy or anything like that in any dark alleys.
Mr. President, everybody is on the line, and just so this is Mark Meadows, the Chief of Staff, just so we all are aware, on the line is Secretary of State and 2 other individuals, Jordan and Mr. Germany. With him, you also have the attorneys that represent the President, Kurt and Alex, and Cleta Mitchell, who is not the attorney of record but has been involved, myself, and then the President. So, Mr. President, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, Brad and Ryan and everybody. We appreciate the time and the call. So we've spent a lot of time on this, and if we could just go over some of the numbers, I think it's pretty clear that we won. We won very substantially, Georgia.
Now this is on January 2nd, 2021, the lead up to January 6th, right? He's already got, and I want you to understand, he's trying to get Georgia to the Secretary of State to say, look, I agree with you based on all this fraud. We're going to flip the state back or whatever, okay? Now, he's already got the Green Bay sweep, which is going to go forward in about 4 days at this point. So he really doesn't need Roethlisberger at all. So I don't really understand what the significance of this call. And again, he says this consistently. We won, we won, we won. So he's got an innocent state of mind, at least is what he's saying.
You even see it by rally size, frankly. We'd be getting 25,000, 30,000 people to rally, and the competition would get less than 100 people, and it never made sense. But we have a number of things.
So I don't think rally size helps him, but he continues.
At least 2 or 3, anywhere from 250 to 300,000 ballots were dropped mysteriously into the rolls. Much of that had to do with Fulton County, which hasn't been checked. We think that if you check the signatures, a real check of the signatures going back in Fulton County, you'll find at least a couple of 100,000 of forged signatures of people with who have been forged. And we are quite sure that's going to happen. Another tremendous number. We're going to have an accurate number over the next 2 days with certified accountants, but an accurate number will be given. But it's in the 50s of thousands, and that's people that went to vote and they were told they can't vote because they've already been voted for. And
now, if you've been following the president and you read his book and things like that, which I have done both, is that he's reading off all these numbers of things that I believe, legitimately believe happened. Now, do you see Donald Trump rolling up his sleeves and going down to Georgia and coming up with them stuff himself? No. Obviously, he's been told these things by various people, and he still believes them and is saying them at this time. So the whole call goes on. You've only heard, I don't know, about a minute at this point, maybe a minute and a half. The whole call is an hour and 2 minutes and 21 seconds. I could play a little Roethlisberger. He comes in right at 14. Let's listen to a little bit of him and give you a flavor, and then I'll finish up the show.
Litigious.
Well, I've listened to what the president has just said. President Trump, we've had several lawsuits, and we've had to respond in court to the lawsuits and the contentions. We don't agree that you have one. I didn't agree about the 200,000 number that you mentioned, and I could go through that point by point. What we had done is we gave our state senate about 1.5 hours of our time going through the election issue by issue. And then on the state house, the government affairs committee, we gave them about 2.5 hours of our time going back point.
So again, I mean, just so you see, he basically pushes back the whole call. So they go back and forth. Trump says there was fraud. Roethlisberger says no. I mean, again, I want you to understand that, listen to Roethlisberger say, we gave the Senate, the Georgia Senate, we gave them 2 hours, and we gave the House, the Georgia House, both of which controlled by Republicans, we gave them like an hour and a half. So, we looked into this stuff, really. But anyway, there's nothing to that except two people talking. They have a difference of opinion over something political. Rafflesberger never does anything, right? And Trump doesn't do anything. That's not criminal. It's not even remotely criminal. Only in a communist, fascist state would anybody try to make it criminal, right? Anyway, you are now all caught up on the news of the day. And if you like the show, I hope you tune back in tomorrow.